Hello and welcome back to the Joyful Soul Creates. Charlotte here, and today I'm participating in a World Oceans Day YouTube hop because today is World Ocean Day. And for my video I'm going to show 3 ways to create ocean style backgrounds for your cards or whatever you want to use them for. The first way is with an alcohol ink background. I forgot to press record so I missed the first little bit, but basically I'm just putting a drop of alcohol ink onto this plastic paper. It's kind of like Yupo Paper, but it's an off-brand one, and then putting a drop of blending solution on top of that and using my air puffer to spread it out. And I'm going across my panel from bottom left to top right. The air puffer, if you're not familiar, it's a tool actually designed for cleaning your lens of your camera, but it works really well for these alcohol inks. Alternatively, you could use a straw and blow it yourself with your straw. My lungs are not the strongest though, so I thought this way would work better for me. If you follow me on Instagram, you will have already seen this alcohol ink panel and the resulting card as I shared them previously, but I had made them with this video in mind, so I'm just showing how I did it here as well. So the 2 colours of alcohol inks I am using on this are Stream and Pistachio, and I will have links to all the products I have used down in the description box below. You can also find the links to the other YouTubers who are participating in the hop down there, so don't forget to take a look. Here you can see the finish card. I'm not actually going to show finishing the cards because I'm concentrating on the backgrounds in this case, but for this card I used a stamp from Simon Says Stamp's Beautiful Mermaid set to create my mermaid to go over the ocean background, and I coloured her tail to match that background and fussy cut her out and popped her up on the panel. The sentiment is also from the same stamp set, and I stamped it and white heat embossed it on a piece of black cardstock and then popped that up as well. My second ocean background is a watercolour background. So we had an alcohol ink background, now we have watercolour background. I've taped down a piece of watercolour paper that's the same size as my card base, covered it in water, and now I'm going in with Gansai Tambi watercolour paints in various shades of blue, and I'm creating an ombre or gradient background going from darkest at the bottom to lightest at the top. Having the paper already wet means that the paint moves and blends together nicely by itself, and every time I go off to the side of the screen I'm just cleaning my brush. Once I've got all the colours in, I went back in with a wet brush and just blended back down from lightest to darkest to blend the paints together. I did decide to speed up the process of the drying and dry this layer with my heat tool. It took a moment, but it's much quicker than waiting for it to dry naturally. You can wait for it to dry naturally if you prefer. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to add another layer. I think I do only do 2 layers this time, but previously when I've done these kinds of backgrounds I'll sometimes do 3 or 4 layers. It really depends on how it goes on the particular day. So now my background is dry, whereas before I was putting the paint onto a wet background, now it's onto a dry background, but I'm still adding the layers in much the same way, building up the colour from the darkest at the bottom to the lightest at the top, and just going backwards and forwards and working the colours together. The paper and paintbrush I'm using are nothing special. They're very inexpensive ones, but they worked well enough for what I was using. The paints, obviously Gansai Tambi, are a bit more expensive. Or not expensive exactly, but they're not inexpensive paints, but you can use anything you have really for this. Once I'd got all my layers on and it was fully dry, I would just peel away the masks, and you can see what that looks like here. To finish off this card, I first stamped and white heat embossed an appropriate sentiment onto the panel. I then die cut a boat from a snippet of black card using the boat die that came in a Recent Love from Lizzie card kit, and I put some vellum behind the sails just to make them look a bit more realistic, and then I just adhered that panel directly onto a card base, and that will complete my second card. Moving on to my third card, and this time I'm going to be doing some smooshing with Distress Oxides. I have Stormy Sky, Mermaid Lagoon, Tumbled Glass and Cracked Pistachio, and I'm smooshing them all onto a piece of acetate. This is actually a piece of stamp packaging. I'm going to spritz them with water and bring my paper to that. This will give me a nice coverage all over the back of the paper. It did, however, also warp my paper quite significantly, and it was even difficult to try and dry it, so I spritzed the back of the paper with some more water, which helped bend it out the other way, and then finished drying it off. It was only actually this first layer that had such a problem with warping. When I went in with subsequent layers, it wasn't such an issue. But with the subsequent layers, I brought the acetate with the ink on it to the paper rather than bringing the paper to the acetate, and this gives just a little bit more control to the technique, although smooshing is really a very loose technique and you don't have a lot of control over it. So I added the ink in layers, drying in between until I'd got pretty much everything off of my acetate. Then I cleaned it off, and now I'm going to add just one colour at a time. So whereas before I was adding a bit of all the colours at once, now I'm working through the colours step by step. So first I added some Stormy Sky, then I cleaned that off my acetate and added some Mermaid Lagoon. Some of it was a bit stronger than I wanted in places, so I did dab it up with a paper towel before drying it off. Then my next layer will be Tumbled Glass, which is my lightest blue, and I'll smush that back over and dry off that layer. And then for my final layer, I will be using Cracked Pistachio. So my other three colours were all blues, and the Cracked Pistachio is a bit of a greener colour, and I thought that just helped the ocean feel because oceans are kind of bluey green. Once that was completed and fully dried, I die cut it with a Lawn Fawn stitched oval die, and I stamped my sentiment onto it, which says "just because." That's from a Crafting Desert Divas stamp set, which I believe is retired, but if it's not, I'll link to it down below. I'm using a digi stamp from Oddball Art for my focal point, and I coloured that in with my Spectrum Noir Illustrator markers, fussy cut it out and attached it onto the oval. And as a very final touch, I did add some Glossy Accents on the monocle. The oval and the octopus are popped up on my card base for a bit of added dimension as well. So that completes my third and final card. I hope you enjoyed all of these cards and maybe you learned something new from them and will be inspired to create some ocean themed cards of your own. If you'd like more ocean inspiration, be sure to check out the links below and see the creations by the other participants in the hub. I'd love to hear from you in the comments. Let me know what you thought, which card is your favourite, and if you have tried any of these techniques before. If you're not yet a subscriber, you can subscribe by clicking the button on screen now, and there are a couple more videos showing on screen if you would like to see more from me straight away. Otherwise, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next video. Bye!